Good morning, everybody. This is a Seasoned Women podcast with Faye Van Dorland. If I say your name, especially your last name wrong, hey, please just take it, give it to the what is it, the mind, not the heart. You know what I'm
There
saying?
you go. It's a mouthful, that's for sure.
Yeah. She's the executive director of Alzheimer's Associations for Central and Western Kansas. Gonna do the introduction, y'all. Okay. Welcome to Seasoned Women's Podcast, the podcast that is raw, real, and uncut. No topics are off limits. Seasoned women, we're going to make it make sense. I'm just saying. My name is Mary Dean, and I am the host for Seasoned Women and the queen of all seasons. My guest today is Faye Vardalandry,
Hey, there you
executive
go.
executive director of Alzheimer's Association in Central and Western Kansas. Welcome to Seasoned Women, Faye.
Thank you.
Just going to give you a little background information about Faye. Faye Van Doren Reed.
We'll get it sooner or later. It's
We'll
all
get it. We'll
right.
get it.
Just say Faye.
We'll Faye. I'm just going to thank you. Thank you. Understands what the sandwich generation is because she experienced it. Her grandmother came to live with her family when she was in the 8th grade. Looking back, she now sees how hard it was for her parents to juggle a young family and care for an elderly parent. If only they had known about the Alzheimer's Association at that time. Perhaps that experience eventually led Faye to her current job, executive director of the Alzheimer's Association, Central and Western Kansas chapter. Her passion for those living with and caring for someone with Alzheimer's or another dementia fuels her determination to guide the chapter in providing care and support services for the 55,000 individuals living in Kansas with Alzheimer's and their caregivers. Oh my God, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Prior to working with the Alzheimer's Association, Faye worked as the Wichita director of the American Diabetes Association, another issue in the community, and as the community center director for McConnell Air Force Base. Her Bachelor of Arts degree from Wichita State University included a major in public relations and a minor in marketing. Faye cares deeply for her community and is on the board planning committee for Lead Wichita's Global Leadership Summit. She serves as an honorary commander for McConnell Air Force Base, and she is a member of Women of Wichita and the West Wichita Rotary Club. In 2008, she was named one of Wichita's Business Journal's 40 Under 40 and a member of the 2018 Leadership Wichita class. When she is not working, you'll find Faye with her family, son Isaac, 18, and her husband, Jane. Welcome, everybody, Faye, to Seasons Women's Podcast. Thank you, Faye, for being my guest.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, yes, I am too, because, I just don't understand the rise. And maybe it's because of social media. I don't know. But
Mhm.
this rise of dementia and Alzheimer's in families, I don't know of a family whose family members not touched by this. It's just really kind of scary. It really is. So I have some questions for you.
Okay.
Maybe we can come to what's going on here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Well, Mary Dean, thanks for asking that question. And I get it a lot. And I love that it's the first question because a lot of times people maybe interuse the terms. And so the easiest way I can explain it is dementia is the umbrella term. So, for example, how we use the term cancer, and then you have different forms of cancer: breast cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic. it's dementia, and then you have different forms of dementia. Alzheimer's disease, frontal temporal lobe, Lewy body. And so Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, affecting 60 to 80% of the dementia cases. And
Okay.
technically, our association name is Alzheimer's and Other Related Dementia Association, but I don't have a sign big enough for the front of the building. So we just call it the Alzheimer's Association.
Okay. Okay. Well, tell me this. On the dementia side, I have several family members who were diagnosed with dementia like maybe 5 years ago or a couple of years ago, but then it's just now beginning to show. Why is that?
So that's a very good question. And the progression of the disease is different for each individual. And so with dementia diagnosis, any dementia diagnosis, that's when I tell people Alzheimer's and dementia, it's not your normal forgetfulness. So as we age, we start to forget things, but we can usually retrace our steps or take a moment and then we can remember what it is. With Alzheimer's or dementia, you can't retrace your steps. And so,
Mm,
what I tell people when they get worried about, oh, I think I might have dementia or Alzheimer's, I said, we all forget things. We're trying to multitask and do so many things. It's when you go into the grocery store, and I don't know how many people have done this, but I sometimes walk out and I'm like, where did I park my car?
right.
And I push the little button so I can hear it beep. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I came in through produce this time. So that's why it's over there. But it's when I can't remember what that building is behind me, where I'm
Mm,
at, what these keys are for in my hand. That's when it's disrupting your normal daily life.
okay.
Now, with your family members that maybe were diagnosed, they maybe saw some mild cognitive impairment, is what we call, and it was good for them to go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm starting to see some signs of, some memory loss and things like that. They could stay in that early stage for very long periods of time. So there's an early, a middle, and a late stage. And there's no rhyme or reason how long you stay in the early stage when you start to progress the disease. So some people stay in the early stage very long, some people progress rapidly. And with Alzheimer's disease, and Alzheimer's or any other dementia, you could get your diagnosis and live for 10, 20 more years
Yeah.
um, with that disease. So
Yeah.
every case is different.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
What is the current prevalence of Alzheimer's in the state of Kansas? And what is the estimated increase projected to be?
Well, in the state of Kansas, there are 55,000 Kansans that we know over the age of 65 that are living with Alzheimer's or dementia. By 2025, that number is estimated to go up to 62,000
Oh,
individuals.
wow.
That's a
Wow.
lot of people. And
Yeah.
when you think about it, it's like combining, and then when you add the caregivers in with that, it's like almost combining the populations of Derby and Winfield and all of our surrounding areas um, for the number of folks that are living with this disease. And as I stated, those are the folks that have the diagnosis. A lot of times people maybe don't go to the doctor because they don't want to know.
Yeah.
Which I, you talked about how we're hearing about it more and things like that.
Hmm.
And I just think that's a blessing because in the past, people maybe didn't talk about this.
Right.
And so, but I feel like if I'm diagnosed with cancer or, diabetes or something like that, people aren't afraid to tell people, I have cancer. Can you pray for me? Or I just found out I have diabetes. People before tended to keep their Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis a secret and keep that in. And there's nothing that anyone does to get this disease. It's it's not anything to be shameful of or anything like that. And so in my 8 years being here, I've been so grateful to see the prevalence of it coming out. and
Yeah.
people talking about it more. And, um, bless those individuals that share their story so that
Yes.
people can see, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I mean, 62,000 Kansans by 2025. That's next
That's
year.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
Um, what about those people who are younger that are not aging, that are getting signs of dementia? What is going on with that, Faye?
So the most common, what I would say trait is, yes, aging. We can't help that. But there are people in their 40s and 50s that are being diagnosed with what we call early onset.
Mm,
Um, and I will tell you, from what I understand, and Mary Dean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just kind of, going off of things. And if anybody has any questions afterwards, please reach out to me and I will find out the answers if I don't know. But what we're finding is that there are plaques and tangles in our brains. And what's happening with Alzheimer's or dementia are those plaques and tangles essentially are eating at our brain and
mm,
causing it to shrink. And
mm,
so those plaques and tangles can be happening 10 to 20 years before we even see outward symptoms. So perhaps somebody that's diagnosed in their 60s, these plaques and tangles have been doing things in their brain when they were in their mid 40s to 50s, but they didn't have any outward symptoms of
mm.
Alzheimer's or dementia. It is scary though, because when you are younger and you're experiencing cognitive impairment, because the disease is mostly related to older Americans, it's harder for you to get the diagnosis. I don't know how many times I've heard women say, they told me it was menopause. No,
Mm,
it's not menopause. And I have always told people, you are your strongest advocate when you go
right,
to the doctor. You know
right,
your body and like, this is not normal. Like, and you just keep telling your doctor. And even if
mm,
they say, well, let's just write that down and next year when you come back for your yearly, we'll talk about it again. Well, I don't want to go a year
right.
having, when I know something is wrong, I don't want to go a whole year. Maybe if something's wrong, we can do something about it now.
Mm,
One of the things I found interesting, and I did not know this, and so I want all of your subscribers, listeners to know this, is if you have a UTI, you can exhibit symptoms of dementia or Alzheimer's.
oh,
Go to your doctor and just, if you're having these symptoms, it could be as easy as getting some antibiotics and clearing that up. And
mm,
when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. So, because sometimes people, if they have it in their family and they start noticing they have cognitive issues, they may not want to go to the doctor. They'd be like, you know what? I know what happened to grandma and auntie and, uncle, and it's happening to me. And maybe it's not happening to you. Maybe it is your
mm,
UTI, or maybe your doctor's put you on a new medicine that's having a different, what is that called? A reaction or something to another
mm,
medicine that
mhm.
you're having. And so anytime you're experiencing cognitive issues, you have to go to your doctor. And I say, just tell your doctor everything. My doctor probably is like, Faye, you've shared too much, but I'm like, you're my doctor. So
I
I'm
know
going to
that's
share away.
I know that's right, Faye. Okay, great. Okay, what about the number of care partners for those individuals with Alzheimer's? Tell me a little bit about them.
So right now, and I'm going to look down at my paper to make sure I tell you the right numbers, because these are staggering numbers. There are more than 89,000 care partners for the
Mm,
55,000 Kansans. It's hard to be a caregiver.
mm,
And we're talking about care partners that aren't professionals. When I say that 89,000, they're
mm,
providing 125 million hours of
mm.
unpaid care. And if we wanted to put a value on that, that's $1.9 billion.
Wow.
nearly 19% of care partners, this is the part that is heartbreaking to me, have poor physical health themselves. 33% of them have said they are experiencing depression.
Mm.
Being a care partner is hard. And so, what I would suggest to others, if you know somebody that is a caregiver, a lot of times we'll say, hey, call me if you need anything. I'm not going to call. I don't want to be a burden. So maybe instead
Yeah.
of call me if you need anything, maybe come by with some groceries for me. That when
Mm-hmm.
you went to the grocery store, you picked up some items for me. Or maybe just come by and sit with me so maybe I can take a shower or do some other things so that you can sit with my loved one. I
Okay.
sometimes
Yes.
ask people to be a little bit more proactive when we're helping our caregivers. Um, and I've done it, like, well, call if you need anything. And then I never hear from them. Like, well, they didn't call. Well,
You're
they didn't
right.
call because they're overwhelmed. They
Right.
they have so many things. And so um, it's so important that we take care of caregivers. That is the most stressful job there probably is. And you're losing your loved one at the same time, but you've got to care for them and make sure
Yeah.
that they're safe. And, people want to keep their loved ones at home for as long as they possibly can. And
Mm.
so being able to offer that care and support to them as well is prevalent. We have over 30 different support groups here at the association. Some of them are virtual, some of them are in person. Some of them we invite the caregiver to bring their loved one with them. And so if you visit our website, we have a list of all of those when they meet. And, perhaps that's something that a caregiver can take advantage of. And even if they don't, we as friends and family can help those
Yes.
caregivers.
Yes.
Very important.
Faye, if you could put that in the chat, it would be great.
Yeah.
The information, your website. Okay, that's some good information about, especially about our caregivers. I'm telling you, it's a burden. You know, uh, sometimes it's more than people really understand. Looking from the outside, if you haven't really done it, they just don't understand it.
You don't get it till you've lived it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a difference between the prevalence with women and men? And is there racial and ethnic differences in the prevalence of Alzheimer's and other dementia?
So there is. So women, we are 2/3 more likely to develop the disease, and we're
Wow.
2/3 more likely to be caregivers. So on both ends, women, I mean, we know this, women,
Yeah.
we're the caregivers, we're 2/3 is more likely to have the disease.
Mm,
Women live longer than men. And we know that one of the things with Alzheimer's is age. But it's not
mhm.
necessarily just because we live longer doesn't mean we're going to get that. And researchers are really looking at the genetic differences between men and women to see if there's a factor there. When we talk about the differences between the ethnicities and race, African Americans are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease than whites, and Hispanic
Wow.
individuals are 1.5 times more likely. Well, we're not,
Wow.
I know we're not quite sure why that is. One of the things
Yeah.
that researchers are looking at is that in these two ethnicities, there are higher levels of vascular disease as well.
Mm,
We've heard that in these groups. And what we say, what's good for your heart is good for your brain.
mm,
So we call them modifiable risk factors, that things you can do, which I say I'm going to give myself, the fighting chance. Like
mm.
looking at your blood pressure, like making sure you get enough sleep, a healthy diet. All of those things are good for your heart. They're good for your brain too. And
Okay.
so we know that there's a higher prevalence in the Hispanic and African American community with vascular disease. So we're
Mm,
wondering if those are connected. And
okay.
researchers are really looking at that as well.
Oh, those are some high numbers. Come on now. Wow. So another question, how long have they been researching these factors?
So for years. And one of the things that I will share with you is that the Alzheimer's Association is the third largest funder of Alzheimer's research in the world. And
Mhm.
last year we funded $100 million in research projects in 6 different continents. And I always laugh, if you find me an Alzheimer's research doctor in Antarctica, we will fund his research because we don't
Okay.
care where the kid
Right,
comes
right,
from.
right.
And we've been doing research. So the association has been in place since 1981, I believe.
Mm,
And I'm sure
mhm.
that research has been happening before then, but the association really got involved in the 80s.
Oh, okay, okay. Because it's really kind of disheartening to see a young, when I say young, I'm talking about maybe in their 50s,
Yeah.
60s, that are dealing with dementia. It's really so sad because they were, these people were such vibrant, engaged, and active people. And then to see what's going on with them, it's just so sad and disheartening to see that. And I do understand that is there a medication that can actually slow down the progression of this disease?
There is. And so it is disheartening and, like you said, sad, but there is hope. And so there are 2 now approved FDA drugs that these happened in, let's see, the first one was approved, I believe, in 2021, which was like the first time in 20 years that we'd had
Mhm.
an approved drug. And these 2 approved drugs, what's so exciting about them, I would say, is that they're not treating the symptoms, they're treating the cause.
Okay.
And so, and then we are proud that they are, so I'll tell you the names of the drugs. They're called, and I'm gonna hopefully pronounce them correctly, aducanumab and lecanemab.
Okay.
And they were introduced, they're FDA approved, and Mary Dean, I'm so proud to say that they are now also approved and covered by Medicare.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
when they first came out, aducanumab wasn't, and the Alzheimer's Association took a hard stand on it's not fair to have a drug and then people can't afford it. We
Right.
want people to have access. And so that
Yes.
was something that I'm proud of the association for taking a stand and saying, no, you can't charge this much. That's not how that goes. Both of these drugs are infusion drugs and they help with the early onset. So while it won't, what I say, reverse the symptoms, so I can't add the plaques and take them away, what it
Mhm.
will do is slow down that progression of them. So the
Okay.
earlier you get diagnosed and put on these drugs, then we can slow that progression down. And really, what people want is more time.
Yes.
And so that's giving them more time to be
Yes.
with their loved ones, more time to be with their families, more time to have quality of life. And
Yes.
so that's what's exciting about these drugs is that it's giving people more time.
That's
And
good. That's good.
let's see, I was looking at that and we have clinical trials and really for the Aduhelm and aducanumab drug, we have clinical trials that were here in Wichita, Kansas. And
Hmm.
um, I mean, they're all over, but a lot of times people don't realize that even here in Wichita, we are doing clinical trials for Alzheimer's drugs. And we have a program called, and I'll put it in the chat, it's called Trial Match. And people can
Okay.
sign up to be part of clinical trials. And you don't even have to have the disease to be part
Oh,
of clinical trials because we like
okay.
to look at healthy brains and
Good.
compare. And so, or if you have family members or loved ones, and what's great about it is you go online and you fill out a questionnaire. And if there's a trial that comes up that they think you would be a good match for, they call you and they say, would
Okay.
you like to be part of this? And you can accept or decline.
Okay.
But we just need people to be part of clinical trials, especially with, we went over those statistics, 2/3 women, higher
Hmm.
prevalence in African American and Hispanic. So we want all ethnicities represented in a clinical trial. And so that's what it's so important. And I will put in the chat there the website where you can go and learn more about that.
Okay.
And as I
So
say that, I should type that in, huh?
yeah. But that clinical trial would probably be good for those people whose family members, it might be, it runs in your family, so it might be a great benefit to maybe go, be involved in those clinical trials.
Definitely. And I will say, I also typed in our helpline number, which is
Okay.
24/7. So if you're not maybe computer savvy or you don't want to go on computer and you want to talk to someone, talk to us.
Okay.
Call the 800 number. It's 800-272-3900. And we speak 200 different languages
Oh,
on
wow.
that number. So
That's
individuals,
great.
I love that part because my mom spoke
Yes.
no. And
Yeah.
when you're in crisis or stress, you tend to go to your native language. And so,
Hmm.
um, if my mom needed something, she would probably go and it would be easier for her to convey her feelings and what she was trying to say in Tagalog, and we'll find somebody that can speak
Yeah.
that with her. And
Oh,
so,
great.
I love that about the
That's
help.
good. That's good. Okay. So what do you think the future looks like for an aging population when it comes to this terrible disease?
Well, I will say that, the baby boomers, they're in 2011, they started hitting age 65. And so by 2030, I looked this up, the segment of the US population age 65 and older will be projected to be 74 million older
Mm,
Americans. That's going to be 20% of our population by
mm,
2030. And so, I mean, we can't change that one of the risk factors is age.
yeah.
And so that's why we want people to focus, on staying physically and mentally active. And we talk about those modifiable risk factors. And we have like the 10 healthy habits for a healthy brain.
Hmm.
So, I mean, really, we can't change that when baby boomers, they're hitting it. And I mean, 20% of the population over the age of 65 by 2030. We're going to be older, but then that also puts that caregiving and
Yeah.
stress on the younger generation. And so,
Yes.
a lot of what we like to do here at the association is we just want what I call expand our reach and
Hmm.
making sure that the other 80% know if they need something, they can reach out to the association. I had somebody ask me the other day, what were some of the services we offered? And I said, well, we have we have care consultations. You can do it by phone. There's counselors. We have folks that will talk to you. And the individual said, oh, well, I can't afford that. And I said,
Hmm.
you don't have to because it's free. Because we do fundraisers and we have grants and things like that that we do all year long so that you can call that helpline anytime. That's free, that you can come in for a consultation as many times as you want, and it's free.
Hmm.
We'll never charge you. We'll teach education classes and things like that. And so I don't want people to think that they can't afford to get help because
Yes.
help is free. And
Okay.
so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that. Like, don't think that, oh, I can't afford counseling or doing a care consultation. That's extra. That's what rich people
Hmm.
go and do. I'm like,
Hmm.
no.
Yeah.
I wish, I mean, you mentioned in my bio that, my grandmother came to live with us, and I wish my parents had known that so that, maybe they could have gotten some help or just known what was coming.
Yes. You
So,
know, and speaking of that, Faye, uh, my aunt, my mother's sister, when she passed, my mother said that the doctor said she had dementia. That was the first time, and that's been years ago. And that was the first time I heard of dementia. And I said, what is dementia? And she said the doctor told her that because you referenced being active, that
mhm,
if you're not active, she didn't use her brain and it shrunk.
yeah.
I'm like, that was like, wait a minute. You mean if you're not active, your brain can shrink and cause this? So that's been my interest for a long time. And, you know, being, how do you prevent it? If you retire, you sit around, you don't do anything and whatever, you can get dementia because you're not active. That's scary.
It's very scary. And we tell people, I can't tell you if you're going to get it or not going to get it, but like you said, stay active. Like if you're right-handed, maybe learn to write with your left hand.
Mm,
You always hear like, I want to learn something new every day, or I'm going to do my crossword puzzle or my word search. Like, keep your mind active, be social.
yeah,
A lot of times, one of the symptoms, and as people start to get maybe they start forgetting or they're having cognitive impairment, they kind of start to come within themselves and they
yeah,
don't go out and be social and things like that. And social interaction is huge. It keeps our
yes.
minds active and it keeps our moods are better. I mean, it's just great. And
Mhm.
I know during COVID, where we all kind of had to isolate, and we hear those stories in the care homes where they loved ones couldn't come visit and we just didn't know what was happening. Alzheimer's deaths went up nationwide 16%
Wow.
during that 2 years, and a lot of that's attributed to that social isolation because
Mhm.
the disease then progressed faster
Wow.
than it needed to. So being
Ugh,
social, keeping your brain active,
yeah.
eating healthy. I'm not going to tell you not to eat a candy bar, but maybe don't eat like 5 candy bars.
Right, right.
But and when I
Right.
say, exercise, I'm not saying you got to train for a marathon or anything
Hmm.
like that. And one
Hmm.
of our team members, she said my grandma used to have cans of corn and she would just pick them up with her arm, or as she's sitting,
Hmm.
just do some leg lifts while you're, watching TV. Just something to keep that blood flowing and things like that.
Right.
I don't want people
Yeah.
to healthy living, healthy brain where they got to eat lettuce all the time and, be working out and sweat. Like,
Mm.
if you want to do that, great, but that's not what I'm saying you have to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Uh, well, I think we talked, well, I mean, maybe not talk about the current treatments that you have seen come down the pipeline in the last few years. And I think you've talked about that with those
Mhm.
two new drugs that are uh, being used for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. I think that's great. So, what does the Alzheimer's Association offer as far as ways to reduce the risk of dementia? Well, I think we talked about that a minute ago, but
We did. I think
get
I'm sorry I didn't follow your questions. I just kept talking and talking, Mary Dean.
but I mean, but say it again. I mean, people really need to hear this. That's sitting in the back. What do you do to kind of reduce these risks?
So I would say if you go to our website, and I typed it in the chat, alz.org, if you look
Mm,
up 10 healthy habits for your brain, like that's one of the best things you could do. Now,
okay.
it's not going, if you do those and then, God forbid, you do get diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, please don't come back and say, well, Faye said if I did these, but it's almost like, let me give myself a fighting chance.
Right.
The things I can control, let me control them. I
Right.
can't control if there are plaques and tangles already developing in my brain, but I can control what I eat. I can
Hmm.
control getting some physical activity and maybe taking the stairs or parking my car a little bit farther in the parking lot and not by the door of the store. Like, I can control those things. I can
Hmm.
control, you know, being social with my friends. I can control like doing a crossword puzzle or, doing anything like that. So that's what I would say is
Yeah.
do the things you can control. And, if there's ever anything you need, you reach out to us, the 800 number, the website. We have a Facebook page. There's so many ways you can connect with us. And when you connect with us, and Mary Dean, this is why I'm so grateful for you to let me be on your podcast so that we can just expand that reach even
Absolutely.
more. And I tell people that's my number. I hope you never have to call it. But if
Hmm.
you do, I'm going to answer the phone and I'm going to
Absolutely.
walk through this journey with you.
Absolutely. And it's good for people to know that there is some, an association or organization that they can reach out to, and they're not on the journey by themselves. That's great to know.
We don't want anyone left behind. And
Right.
that is one of our things. We will not leave anyone behind. We will
Good.
make sure that we're there to help you every step of the way.
That's great. Okay. Where can someone go to get quick and easy information about Alzheimer's disease and the association? And I mention it again, Faye.
ALZ.org.
Okay.
ALZ.org. Or if
Okay.
you're in Wichita, we just moved our offices, and so we're downtown in the Delano district, right
Oh,
by Milk Float. So,
okay.
which is not good for my healthy living, healthy brain, because they have ice cream and pastries.
Oh, wow.
I have limited myself to only go there once a week for a sweet treat. So,
Okay.
but it's great down here. It's very walkable. Our offices are open Monday through Thursday during the day. However, you can call the 800 number Friday if you want to come in. You just make an appointment and someone will be here. And then, like I said, if you need something on the weekend, if you call and let us know, we have a small but mighty team. There's 6 of us here in the office.
Mm,
And but we're here to help. And it's a passion for all of us to make sure that no one has to say, I wish I would have known about the association. We don't
yeah.
want people to say that. So we want them
Yeah.
to know, I knew about them and I called them and they helped me.
Well, you provided that information for sure. Well, Faye, before we go, uh, what could you say that it would encourage people that's either dealing with Alzheimer's or even their caretakers? What's positive? What's the positive outlook for them?
So what I would say though is you're not alone. And the positive outlook is that there is a community of individuals that want to help you, that are
Mhm.
there for you every step of the way. And living with Alzheimer's or dementia is not, there's a lady I met in Georgia. She has the disease. I've known her for 3 or 4 years, and she's still in the early stages. She's traveling, she's doing
Mm,
all those kinds of things. Don't stop doing what you're doing or being you when you get that diagnosis. You
okay.
can still do the things you want to do. You may have to make some changes to them.
Hmm.
And, maybe like if you were a big road trip person and you could do an 8-hour drive, no problem, but you can't anymore, then you split it
Hmm.
up and
Yeah.
you do 4. But you can still do the things you want to do, and your loved ones can still do the things they want to do. We're just all here to help. It's a community. There's hope. There's the drugs that are approved. There's 3 or 4 more in the pipeline that we hope to see approved by the end of 2024. And so don't be afraid to tell your
Hmm.
doctor, I'm seeing some cognitive things, and get that taken care of, because there are ways that we can give you more time.
Great. Well, Faye, it was really great to, talk to you and discuss this issue. This has been a really big concern for me because of, my family's history. And so I want to thank you again for being my guest and really uh, giving out a lot of information about your organization. I so appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I hope to see you. Oh, before
Oh,
I'd like to ask you,
okay.
if do you have volunteers? I know you do events.
Oh my
Is
gosh, and
there?
I can't believe I didn't say anything about that. Ah,
Yes.
so,
How can people get involved with your organization?
ooh, Mary Dean, my team would have been so mad at me. So we definitely need volunteers. We
Mhm.
like I said, we have 6 staff members and we cover 69 different counties in the state of
Wow.
Kansas. And we really are a volunteer ran organization. And volunteers help us from things such as community education. We can teach
Mhm.
volunteers how to teach a class for us, and they can teach classes for us. They can help us make phone calls. We have
Okay.
fundraising events. If events is your thing and you want to help, plan some fundraisers, we have that. Just help in the office and things like that. There's a plethora of volunteer opportunities available. And if you call, I'm gonna put it in there right now. I'm gonna put
Oh,
our local chapter number
okay.
in there and just call us and let us know whether you have, an hour or two a week or an hour
Mhm.
or two a month. It doesn't matter. Any help that we get is so critical to us being able to make an impact in the lives of those living with this disease.
Well, I tell you, you have my email address. And please, whatever events that you're going to have, share it with me and I will share it with everybody.
Oh, Mary Dean, I love that. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. I certainly will. And if I can, volunteer to help on anything, an event now, I'm not the best with, with my old self, but I try, Faith. But
Well, and I'm
anything that
gonna
I can do, let me
and
know.
I will send you a message. I'll have to look it up on my computer, but next week I believe we have a webinar
Okay.
that talks about clinical trials and the importance of all of the ethnicities participating in those. And
Oh,
it'll be an interactive webinar that people can watch, and then they'll be able to ask questions and things. So I will send that to you, and I would
okay,
love
great.
for you to share that. And
I
it's
I
free to
absolutely will.
attend.
I absolutely will, and I plan to attend. So thank you again, Faye. Have
Thank
a
you so
have a good
much.
day. Have a good day. You are so welcome. Take care now.
I hope I did okay.
You did fine. You did great.
Oh,
I love it.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. I was just like, oh, I think I answered that question with the another question. So
Well, I'm gonna end the meeting. Thank you.